Hey everyone, I'm Mariana, and today I am finally going to tell you what my top 10 films of 2017 are. So many of you have been asking for this video, you guys have been waiting for it, so let's do this. Before I get into this, really quickly, my usual disclaimers for people who are new to my channel, haven't seen me do these top 10s of the year yet. First of all, hello. I have not seen every single film that came out in 2017. That is an impossible task, and if I tried to do that, I would be waiting to do this video for another year, and I don't even know if that would happen. So I apologize if I missed any of your favorites. Let me know, of course, what your favorites are in the comments below, and I will try to check them out. Also, of course, this is my personal list. It's based on my personal, most likely biased preference. These are films that I enjoyed the most, films that affected me the most, and this is probably going to be a list that is different from yours, and that is fine. How boring would it be if we all had the same top 10? It'd be pretty boring. So once again, don't get too upset if our lists are pretty different. If you are curious and you do want to see a full ranked list of all of the films from 2017 that I have seen at this point, I will link that in the info box below. This is something I keep track of on Letterboxd. It is something that I keep private until I publish my top 10. So yes, you can see that if you want to know what I was picking from. And also, most of the films that I talk about in this video, I have reviewed on my channel, so I will link all of those reviews as well. All right. Let's get into the top 10. Starting this countdown at number 10 is Wind River. This is written and directed by Taylor Sheridan. It is a dark mystery where an FBI agent, played by Elizabeth Olsen, and a local tracker, played by Jeremy Renner, work together to solve a murder on the Wind River Indian Reservation. This film is incredibly suspenseful, but it also has some really good, powerful character moments, which is something I love seeing in any genre, but it is interesting to see that in a mystery because it gives you more to care about than just the mystery itself. I loved the setting. It's very cold and snowy. The atmosphere is just perfect and adds to the darkness and the terrifying mood of this entire thing. Basically, I loved it because it wasn't just your typical mystery. It had something to say. The performances were wonderful, and the characters are the kind of characters that you're going to care about. At number 9 is Mother, written and directed by Darren Aronofsky, the most divisive film of 2017. This is something else. Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem play a couple who live in this huge house in a secluded location, and their life gets interrupted by some unexpected visitors, and then just all hell breaks loose. This is an allegorical film. It is something that requires analyzing when you watch it. It is definitely not for everyone, but I love stuff like that. There are so many different themes going on. The characters aren't really specific people. They're more archetypes and ideas. There are also a lot of religious themes in there as well. Basically, this is my kind of film. It is weird and it gets crazy. There's some graphic imagery. It's not perfect, but it certainly is one director's vision. At number 8, I have The Disaster Artist, directed and starring James Franco as Tommy Wiseau, whom I'm sure pretty much all of you have heard of. This is the guy who made the terribly bad but also entertainingly bad film The Room. The film is basically about the creative process behind The Room and how the movie was filmed, but it is also about friendship and dreams and hopes and all of that. And I have to say, this was the biggest surprise of the year for me. I didn't have very high expectations for this. I kind of was afraid that this was going to be your regular, more comedic approach to something like that. Just let's laugh at how terrible this movie is and how badly this guy sucked. But it was not that at all. I actually found it to be incredibly inspiring and incredibly emotional as an experience for me. I would highly recommend this film if you haven't seen it, and if you have some of the same reservations that I had. It is so worth it. It's just a really good movie, and after it ended, I somehow came out hopeful and just generally in a good place. At number 7, I have A Ghost Story, written and directed by David Lowery, and yes, that is the film with a really awkwardly long scene where Rooney Mara eats a pie, and also the film where Casey Affleck walks around as a ghost in a sheet for pretty much the entire thing. This film is just wonderful. I absolutely loved it. It had a really surprisingly strong emotional effect on me. It was such a unique, melancholic, and nostalgic experience for me. I love stuff like that. It is strange and the pacing is pretty slow, but I just loved everything about it. And the soundtrack is incredibly beautiful. There's only one scene that I wasn't a huge fan of, but other than that, I just loved what it had to say, and I don't want to ruin it for you because it's kind of all tied up in a way where it's hard to describe the plot without ruining it. But if you've seen my review, you have seen me gush about it, and you know how much I love it. I highly recommend it. Just be prepared for it to be kind of slow, meditative, and strange. At number 6, for something entirely different, and by entirely different, I mean cannibalism. I am talking about Raw, written and directed by Julia Ducournau. This is a French film. I do believe it is on Netflix now, so you can actually check it out. And this is one of the most unique coming-of-age stories you will ever see. In this movie, we have a young girl entering veterinary school. She was raised as a vegetarian, but as part of the hazing rituals in this school, she is forced to eat some raw meat, and that really messes with her head. It is, like I said, a coming-of-age story, unlike anything you've ever seen, but I highly recommend this because if you can stomach the idea of cannibalism and some of the gore, which there isn't really excessive gore in this film to the point that you would imagine. There is some, but there isn't all that much. I think it is definitely worth a watch, and one of the best things about it is the relationship between her and her older sister. It just gets to you. Also, the soundtrack is just out of this world. It is perfect, and the cinematography is stunning. At number 5, I have 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, written and directed by Martin McDonagh, who you may remember from directing In Bruges. And if you have seen In Bruges, you know what kind of weird combination of comedy, darkness, and drama you're getting into with this one. I did talk about it in a little bit more detail in my top 5 films I've seen this fall video. I unfortunately don't have a review for this one. I am kicking myself for not filming one, but I'm sorry. I do talk about it in that video. Basically, the story here revolves around an unsolved murder of a young girl, and her mother is thinking that the police are just not doing their job well. So she decides to rent some billboards and motivate the police with those. If you're someone who loves complex characters and complex relationships, and I don't just mean romantic relationships, I mean in general interpersonal relationships, this film is 100% for you because pretty much everyone here is some shade of gray. Nobody is really great and just an angel, and nobody is just the worst ever. There is one character who for the longest time is the worst ever, but even for him there is some complexity there and character development there. So if you like stuff like that, this is going to be right up your alley. Also, Frances McDormand is just the performance of the year. I love her in general. This film, she is absolutely amazing. I hope she wins an Oscar for this because I think she is the best this year. At number 4, I have Baby Driver, written and directed by Edgar Wright. I am realizing as I'm talking right now that most of the films on my list are written and directed by the same person, which is interesting. Anyways, Baby Driver is the most fun I've had at a movie this year because it is just a blast. I love the characters, I love the setting, I loved the crazy car chases and some of the over-the-top stuff that was still fun to watch. The music was great and everything being lined up to the music was also great. It is just the most entertaining thing that came out of 2017 in my personal opinion. And I'm not really going to talk about the plot because I think this movie made enough of a buzz for you to know what it's about, kind of. But if you somehow haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and see it because it is just so much fun. I keep saying fun because that is the one word with which I can describe Baby Driver, and it's also kind of adorable. Getting into my top 3 now, these are the 3 films that I have actually rated 5 out of 5 stars, which doesn't happen very often on my channel, but these 3 were fantastic and blew my mind completely. And talk about going from the most fun experience of the year to the most soul-crushing experience of the year. At number 3, I have Loveless. This is directed and co-written by Andrei Zvagintsev. This is a Russian film, and this is one of my favorite directors of all time. Every film I see from this guy is just a masterpiece, but also a soul-crushing experience at pretty much every step. Loveless is a tough drama to watch. This centers around a married couple who are getting a divorce. They have a 12-year-old son who overhears one of their fights and disappears. So the film kind of balances between that mystery of looking for the kid, obviously they're going to look for the kid, and just seeing these people be miserable and hateful towards each other. It is not a super fun film to watch, I can tell you that much, but it is just a magnificent piece of filmmaking. It is also beautifully shot. I love beautifully shot films, and I feel like when I say something's beautifully shot, it doesn't even do it justice. But this film, so many fantastically staged frames, and the color grading and everything is wonderful. The performances are great. The story is very engaging. There's so much tension going on the entire time. And then when you get to the ending, it is just the ending that this film deserves. That's all I'm going to say. I think I'm going to film a review for this because I need to talk to you about this film. It is fantastic, amazing, 5 out of 5, but soul-crushing. At number 2, I have Dunkirk, written and directed by the one and only Christopher Nolan. I am sure you have heard of this one, and I know this film didn't quite work for everyone because of the unusual approach to a war film that Nolan decided to go with, but I was a big fan of this unusual approach. It definitely worked for me. Obviously, this is about the Dunkirk evacuation. Don't really need to tell you about the plot of this. The thing about this film is that it does not follow the route that you expect from a war film. It doesn't introduce you in depth to a character or a group of characters and shows you their side of the war and their personal tragedy. No, it shows the event from different perspectives. It plays with the timelines. I loved everything about it, and I was terrified watching it. It was just an experience on the big screen. I actually saw it twice on the big screen, and I would love to see it again because I think it is wonderful. And of course, at number one, I think you guys have guessed it, right? We all know this is Blade Runner 2049. I mean, it had to be. I loved this film. This film just floored me. And guess what? I already have my steelbook and it is stunning. I love the design of this. It's wonderful. It's going to join my other Denis Villeneuve steelbooks. This is obviously directed by Denis Villeneuve, and I am officially calling it the best sequel ever made. I'm sure you can argue with me about that, but that is my opinion. There is just so much to unpack about Blade Runner 2049. It has the original Blade Runner atmosphere and philosophy, but it also follows its own path. It has its own characters, and it has something new to say. It is magically very faithful to the original, but also completely new. It is fantastic, and I don't think I need to tell you how gorgeous it is. It is just a feast for the eyes. And I'm not talking about Ryan Gosling because I'm actually not the biggest Ryan Gosling fan, but I even liked Ryan Gosling in this. Who knew that would happen? Harrison Ford is fantastic. I'm going to shut up about this because I do have a pretty gushing review on this film, and I do want to make another video about it, talking about all of the spoilers and what I think about it a little bit more in depth. I am a huge Denis Villeneuve fangirl. I always look forward to his films, and he has never disappointed me. He might disappoint me at some point in the future, but I will not stop loving him just because of that. He is one of my all-time favorite directors, as well as Andrzej Wajda. These two are just constantly blowing my mind, and his films have been in my top 10s for the past few years. My favorite film of 2016 was his Arrival, so yeah, I don't think there's any surprise here, but Blade Runner 2049 is just, it speaks to me. All right, guys, that is it for my top 10 films of 2017. I would love to know what you think and what your top 10 looks like. Let's not fight in the comments about films that we like or dislike. As I mentioned earlier, if I didn't name one of your favorite films here, maybe I didn't see it. Maybe it just didn't speak to me as much as these 10 did. But either way, we can just agree to disagree, right? Let's talk about all of that in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, all of the things you already know how to do. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye.